Alphonse is in the shed. Wheeled her in, got her up on stands and having a good old look at it, seeing what we've got to do, seeing how far the repair panels come up the guards. You can see here the previous lead that was put into there. It's actually still in good condition, but I mean we'll be cutting some of it away anyway to replace the bottom. Yeah, so that's what's happening. We've got all the panels outside here. They've already been epoxied, so that we metal cleaned it, epoxied them, waited till the epoxy cured, scuffed the epoxy, clean it, put a skimmer filler over the whole panel, and then blocked it back, and then it has a couple of coats of resto finish poly. We got it in the red, so the epoxy we got was black, and we just decided to go something different in the red. So we're starting around this side here. Pretty advanced, back in 1960 whatevs. Disc brakes on the back. Don't know about this axle stop here. That actually, this leather strapping is what stops the axle from going too low. Well, at least it's not being maxed out on the shocker, I suppose. So this is the type of quality you get. It's a bit early to say at the moment, isn't it? How good it is. So, but looking at that, we'll probably make the most of it. You know, it's obviously going to take a bit of manipulation, maybe curve it around to get it to look right. But just with this part, previous repair there and all that dinted in there, it's just worth cutting it away and starting out fresh, and we'll work with that. Oh, I've got to get this thing's broken. Yeah, but as I said in the previous video, I think, is that you've got access to the other side of this. Just the floor levels are through here, so just above the floor level, so at least we'll be able to planish that a bit and smooth it up with the hammer and dolly. So you can see how dinted in that is there, and that sort of was all full of filler. So yes, time we start a bit of cutting and welding. We've got the four corners of this back part, and I think we've got the fronts as well, so that should be all good. All right, just thought I'd give you an update of where we're up to. So basically the panels, the bonnet and the boot and the two doors are all what I'd call, they're about 90% done. So I'm not doing the final block on them until this whole body has been body worked and is in poly as well. So once they're all got the same amount of coating on it, then we hang all the panels and then block it all as one big panel. So that's the aim, to run the hard blocks over all the edges so that it's pretty much seamless, and when you look down the side here, it should be looking really good. So that's the plan. We will keep on trucking and get this done. Out for now. Right, just a few things I'm going to talk about. So I'm about to replace this piece. What I've noticed is that this hole here, the original piece, the original one here, is that hole there, but it's been bogged up. I'm not sure why they've made it lower. Don't know much about these, honestly, whether that's a mount for a trim or a bumper, but anyway, I'll have to check whatever goes in there, I guess, to make sure that it all aligns correctly as it wraps around, maybe. Anyway, So this patch has been welded here. I get the feeling that, especially at the bottom here, they've welded the outer and the inner together. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna cut it. I'll cut it about 10 mil lower all the way around, because at least I know then it's not too it's not too bad. And then like it goes up to here apparently, but I'll just like cut it there because that's where it's bare, and I'll take that back. So always cut less. And yeah, so I'll cut around, and I'll cut around the outside of this arch as well, and then yeah, take this outer piece off, and then I'll work on getting the outer return edge. So it's all been, obviously to try and fit the wider wheels, it's all been punched up. But yeah, we'll just go back to the original ones for now. And well, I'm guessing that's how it was from the factory. And if the wheels need to be, if the wheels widened, I don't know whether those are the ones, but this might just have to be tapped in to match the rest of it. We'll see anyway. All right. If I can put on a tripod. All right. New day, new me. So I've got this taken off. What I've found is that they've actually used like solder, to some sort of solder, I guess, to weld it on. Apparently it's old school. I call it annoying because it makes it impossible to take off. So I've just like cut off the maximum amount I could. The return edge is just like disappeared for the inner, so I'll have to from here on I'll have to sort of make another return edge for the inner, but I'll just use the Chinese grinding disc there to remove all the solder, and then I'll remove this return edge here, and then yeah, start patching the inner and then chuck the outer on. See how we go. Cool. Right, as you can see, I got the shits. Basically I ground back the what is it, brass? Bronze, yeah, that's the one. Bronze, yeah, so I'd ground it back, but the metal on this return edge was just too thin, so I've ended up just cutting it off. So I'll just weld in a new return edge onto this edge here, because I cut it right on the angle. That return edge should be consistent with the rest of it. Right here I tore it up a little bit to trying to remove it, so I'll have to replace this part of the inner as well. Bit hard to see there, and obviously I'll do that as well. So what I've found is this, being aftermarket, it was quite a cheap panel, but I think well worth it for what it is. So that panel, as you can see, it sort of kicks out at the bottom there. Now what I could do is, actually, you know what I probably will do is, instead of, I was just going to leave this, but I'm going to remove the whole thing. I'll probably put the shrink, I'll hit that with the shrinker, this edge here, and that should, that'll kick it in a little bit more to align with the original panel. Although this could be original, and I'm pretty confident that that curve is correct. So yeah, I'm gonna cut out this whole piece. Obviously I'll leave, I'll do my usual 10mm gap there, 10mm in, and yep, I'll hit that with the shrinker, and that'll curve this bottom part around a little bit more, which will make it match with that. There is a bit of filler there, but the not a whole lot, so it's pretty easy to tell where the rest of the piece is. Anyway, and then yeah, I'll do another bit of a return edge there to line up with the bottom of this. And I'm about out of memory, so I'll do that. What? Hey Joel. Oh, hey Joel. All right. I just didn't invite you, Joel. Okay, goodbye. Right. Inners are done. Okay, so obviously cut and welded in a new one there. It's a little bit bigger than the factory one, but it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, repaired this piece. I just folded up a little L piece and sort of hammered it into place. It looks a bit rough because I've only attacked it with the Chinese disc. So that's looking good. I did put a slight curve in it to match, but the rest of it looks a bit rough, but it's not really a problem. And I've done the edge on this, so if you can see, it's got a return edge, and it lines up with the bottom of that, so it can be plug welded all the way along to this original piece up here. So that's going to right there. So I'll be able to weld that to that. I did leave an extra gap there just in case, but that's going to provide a bit more support for this outer panel. Not entirely sure how the factory does it, because it seems to be different on the other side, I think. Or maybe I haven't taken the other side off yet, so I'm not entirely sure, but I think this looks like how it was from the factory. I don't know. Let me know if I've made a horrible mistake with this, but seems good to me. Right. Okay, so now that that's done, I'll be able to do the final trimming of the this to get ready to butt weld this piece on. So we're going to be using a few tools and that. I might actually film the whole process of putting the patch on, but first I've got to clean up these corners a bit and then get some paint in here, because once this is on, we'll no longer be able to access it or see it. So yeah, all right. That's after lunch though. Okay, from now on I will put on time lapse because I'm sick of doing a video every 10 seconds. Right. So what I've done primed. Got a nice coating on there. So what I did was, there was a bit of rust, not just like basic surface rust, a little bit on there and down here. So I sprayed a coat of rust converter because it's you can top coat over it. Makes it good for converting the rust into a protective inert barrier. So just a light coat over all the rusty areas. The bare metal, you don't put it over bare metal because it won't stick. And then on the black areas, so that's the areas that I'm not welding to, I've used just a black galvanized primer. If you had plenty of time, you could probably use a proper epoxy primer, but realistically it's there shouldn't be any issues with rusting
in these parts again now. And where I'm welding to, I've put a copper weld through primer on there because you can obviously weld through it. So that's on around the outside and the underneath bits. And on this, because I'm not entirely sure whether this is actually a primer, a decent primer coat. So basically I've just drilled the holes. Where they I don't know if you can see, sort of see that inner layer, so that I can weld, I can spot weld to that inner piece. But what I'll do is I'll get this back to bare where I drilled. I've got to drill some holes on the bottom so I can weld the bottom edge to the inner. So I'll get this part back to bare, and I'll do a copper primer on that strip there, and probably the top as well, basically around the outside where I'm welding to. And then the rest of main area, because the copper's super expensive, any areas that have no heat, don't get any heat into it from the welding or all that, I'm just going to put the black galvanized primer over that. So yeah, I'll quickly prep this up and then show you what I mean, and then set the time lapse up. Here we have a test fit. A testicle fit. Testicle fit. Right, so basically the two important things, while it looks like I was stuffing around, I definitely needed to trim off a little bit more. So it's just getting this arch correct, making sure that flow is exactly matching with. Now it looks like it's sticking out a bit because, like I said before, a bit hard to bloody... Hang on. So, oi, this is a child friendly. Don't say the A word. This is a children friendly show. Right, so that's obviously crunched in, but if you look at it straight side on, you can see where that curve goes in is matches with it. Yep, so it's good. So these are, what do you call these again? These clamps?
They're called Yep. Panel clamps.
Yeah, panel clamps. Let's call them that for now. So they are just, so basically it clamps on at the front, and these only work for an inside piece, but as you can see, there's little like rods there that basically join between, and when you tighten the wing nut, it basically pushes these two bits of metal together. So if you ever one disadvantage is you have to have a gap there for this to slide through, but you really want a gap there anyway, because if you've got it perfectly butted up against each other, any amount of heat from the welding can actually push the metal closer together and then create a crater. A crater? What's the opposite of a crater? A mountain. A mountain. Anyway, so getting that one was needed, and making sure this bottom, lines up. So as you can see, it's a bit of a gap there, which is good. It's probably a bit more than comfortable, so I'd prefer a 1mm gap. That's probably like 1.5, 2 millimeters, but that's okay. But getting this bottom matched up is the most important part, and that is well and truly even. And I noticed that this panel here is sticking out a little bit, and that makes sense because as you saw on the time lapse, there was a bit of bog on there to even out. So there's obviously a bit of filler here to even that out, but that looks pretty fucking fantastic.
Pretty joy.
Okay, so I'm going to get all this back to bare, around the outside back to bare. Probably actually end up doing the whole panel. I'll clean up around the outside where a bit of surface rust has come up from when I ground it back. Yep, and then I'll just start welding it in. No reason why I can't do that, so yeah. Let's get it done. Look at this person. If I could zoom in with the GoPro, I would. Alright, let's continue. Right, so if you couldn't tell by that beautiful 23-second time lapse, tacked it in, looking good. It actually tightened up a bit there, the gap, but honestly the tolerance is like less than 1 millimeter, so I'm not too worried. This line is still good. Although I did work out that this original panel, the shape is not exact. I worked out it was a little bit bowed. The curve was a little bit not exact, although, you know, really look what you're working with. Thankfully, that's what those clamps are for, evening out. But this here kicks out slightly once that's all joined together. So thankfully there's not a lot of tension. I can actually like push it in with my fingers. So basically I'm gonna just do clamp the inner and the outer together, and that should suck in this piece here to match the original one. So yeah. So I'll get a few more tacks in there. The gaps, the level between the two is good. Yeah, and then I'll just work my way around. Looking at that, kicks out a bit at the bottom, but it is, oh, probably not fucking watching it. The gap is still even, so that's good. Yeah, guess I'll get this finish welded in and see how we go. So I've, for the inners, see the holes that I've punched there. So basically it's just bringing the inners and the outers together and welding them in. But yeah, and clearly see the inner of that patch I put in. So I'll be able to just push that in slightly. It's a bit of a, I don't want to push it in too much, because if it creates too much tension, then the panel's more likely to warp when there's a lot of heat into it. But most of these holes here are just about or already touching, so that's not really, it's not an issue. Except for this end one, I might just like push it in slightly and then tack it in as is, and that means there'll be a little bit of a gap there, but that's not really an issue. So yeah, I did try and get a bit of paint off the parent on the back, the parent metal on the back edge, but it's that fucking shit that that clogs the disc like anything, bloody underbody coating or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Let's get some welding done. Whew. I've done the bulk of the welding. Look how good it looks. It looks so good. Woo! Can barely see the weld. Oh, once I clean it up, you won't be able to see it. But we had some warpage. So right here, if I, oh, you can barely see it. Yeah, you can barely see it. No, not yet. Right, so basically right in this bit here, it has shrunken in a little bit. I was trying to avoid all warpage. Obviously I got a little bit too much heat onto there.
Hammer and dolly.
No.
Yes.
Normally, if you had to repair it there, you would not be able to hammer and dolly it because you can't access it. But right there. Yep. So you can see the line. You can, well, you can't even see it there. But so right here is where it shrunk in. Just be quiet. Be quiet. And these little, okay, so one little bit of warpage is fine, but because we can access it, it's not a problem. The rest of the panel's nice. These little ones these little holes I've drawn here are just like little holes. These circles I drew are just little holes, so I've just got to run along, touch them up with the welder, and then it will be completely sealed. So the reason I didn't do these first before seam welding that is because basically the metal moves where it wants to, and the bigger the area, although the bigger the area, the more the movement with a panel. What I find is if you've got a flat panel and you've got spot welds like close to it, like essentially locking this line into place, I find if any warping does happen, it's actually more aggressive. Whereas if you I'll let that open, basically the panel moves where it wants to, and yeah, so it's sort of a more gradual warp. It's sort of like the better kind of warping that you want. You don't really want any aggressive like warping in one spot. And that's another reason why you have, I already said this, but why you have this slight gap in between the panels. Of course, if you had if you were TIG welding, it'd be a different issue. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I like the smoothness of it. I do have to replace the other one right there, and it's in the exact same spots. So basically this side's exactly the same. Oh, except I'm looking at this. There's no inner support on this side. Now, whether it's been cut away entirely or what, I don't know. But it's just like, because of the spare wheel, I maybe just never had one. It seems a bit weird to me that you never had one, whereas this did, because I don't know whether it's because it was a spare wheel, or maybe there is one there and it's just been cut away that I don't know about. But it all looks factory enough, so it's just very, very confusing. Anyway, this side is the oh my god, this GoPro, Jesus. Right, so there you have it. One rear panel almost welded in, almost finished. Pretty happy with that. Oh, obviously, so just tacking these along here, touching up the welds, and then running around the outside, and basically using locking tools or whatever to lock the inner and the outer together. and then welding it all together, and then that's it. Yay! Alright. Yeah, anyway. Probably won't film this because there's a whole lot of boring fiddly shit. Alright. Carry on. 54 doing. Anyway. Is it beer o'clock?
Hell yeah!
Okay, beer o'clock. So let's show the unit quickly. Oh well, you've already seen it. There's a fucking wire there. Beep, 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 beep. So you can sort of see the tacks on the bottom. So that'll just need a seam sealer across that. I made sure there's this bloody crumbly stuff. I'm guessing it's the seam sealer they used from the factory. I made sure to clean all the seam sealer because it's like, oh god, this bloody GoPro. It's like really thick from like here all the way down and then across here as well. Got all that removed and put a rust converter inside there because I noticed there was rust underneath it. So check your seams. Check your seams. Anyway, alright. That's 8 minutes. That's fucking too long. Alright. Goodbye for now. On to the next patch. Probably tomorrow.